The hospital lobby smelled of antiseptic and burnt coffee, a sterile sharpness that settled in the lungs. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, bleaching the room in a pale glare that made every scuff on the marble floor stand out. Footsteps echoed, urgent, uneven. Somewhere behind the walls, a heart monitor kept a steady rhythm, measuring time without caring who stood on which side of the room. Marcus stepped inside and let the sliding doors whisper shut behind him. He adjusted the small paper gift bag in his right hand, not nervously but firmly. His grip was controlled, intentional. Inside were simple things: grape juice, a paperback novel, a folded card creased once down the middle. Ordinary, unthreatening, he knew that. His shoulders settled anyway, spine straightening by instinct, the way it always did in places where uniform set the rules and assumptions did the talking. He glanced toward the check-in desk, then the elevators, and moved forward. A white couple crossed in front of him, laughing softly. The security guard near the entrance looked up, met their eyes, and gave a casual nod. No questions. No pause, they passed. For half a second the lobby went quiet, then "Hold it right there." The words landed hard in the silence. Marcus stopped. "Where do you think you're going with that?" He turned. The guard had stepped into his path, black uniform crisp, belt heavy with keys and authority. His badge caught the light. His eyes didn't stay on Marcus's face. They dropped slow, deliberate to the bag, then to his jacket, his shoes, lingering there as if price tags told a story. "I'm here to visit someone," Marcus said evenly. His voice was calm, practiced. "Room, The guard lifted a hand, cutting him off mid-sentence. "What's in the bag?" The front desk keys stopped clacking. A nurse slowed near the hallway. The air shifted, thickened. Marcus tightened his grip on the handles, not to hide the bag but to steady himself. He didn't look away. "It's a gift," he said, "for a patient." A cold smirk crept across the guard's face. His gaze dipped again, openly judging now, then returned to Marcus with a confidence that assumed agreement. "We don't get many visitors with bags like that this early," he said, stressing the word. "Especially not around here." Marcus held his stare, his jaw set not in anger but restraint. "Is there a problem?" The guard crossed his arms. "We've had theft issues." "I'm going to need to check that bag." A murmur moved through the lobby, low and uncertain. Marcus felt the moment crystallize, the looks, the waiting, the unspoken permission for this to happen. High above them, tucked where wall met ceiling, a security camera blinked red. In its curved glass, the guard's smirking face reflected back at him, confident, certain, blind. The lens didn't blink, it watched. Marcus hadn't planned to be here long. Hospitals had a way of stretching minutes into something heavier, something that pressed down on the chest and refused to lift. He intended to drop off the bag, exchange a few careful words, and leave before the afternoon shift blurred the hallways into something louder and less patient. That was the plan. Plans, he knew, were fragile in places built on authority. He stood in the lobby with the guard facing him, adjusted the cuff of his coat with his free hand, and glanced once at his watch. Not impatient, measured. Time mattered to him. His time mattered, even if the man in uniform had already decided otherwise. He slowed his breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth. The rhythm was familiar. He hadn't learned it in a classroom or a gym. He'd learned it in moments exactly like this, moments that required stillness, control, and the discipline to not give strangers the satisfaction of reaction. It wasn't fear, it was readiness. Marcus was what people called solid. Mid-30s, built by routine rather than ambition. Not tall enough to command space, not small enough to disappear. His clothes were simple but intentional. The jacket wasn't new, but it was clean. The shoes had been polished that morning out of habit, the same way he made his bed and checked the locks twice before leaving home. Order was a language he spoke fluently. He worked a steady job that paid the bills and left him tired in an honest way. He called his mother every Sunday, even when she asked the same questions, even when the answers hadn't changed. He volunteered twice a month because it grounded him, not because it earned applause. He showed up when people asked him to. None of that was visible in the lobby. What was visible was his skin. He'd learned young that dignity wasn't granted. It was carried, maintained, sometimes defended in silence. He held his posture now, shoulders squared, chin level, not to prove anything but to avoid surrendering it. Explaining himself too quickly had never helped. Apologies offered preemptively had only ever confirmed suspicions that weren't his to begin with. The gift bag tugged gently against his fingers. The paper handles pressed into his skin, and he adjusted his grip, firm but unyielding. He thought of the person upstairs, the reason he was here, the beeping machines, the long waits, the conversations that circled the same hopes and avoided the same fears. That thought steadied him more than any breath ever could. Across from him, Derek shifted his stance. Derek had worn a hospital security uniform for nearly 12 years, long enough to confuse repetition with expertise, long enough to believe he could spot trouble before it spoke. His days were structured around observation and interruption, around deciding who belonged and who required explanation. The uniform made it easier. The badge made it unquestionable. He told himself it was about safety, about protecting patients, but safety in his mind had a certain look and Marcus didn't fit it. Derek's eyes moved again, cataloging details he'd already judged: the bag, the jacket, the shoes. He noticed Marcus's calm and mistook it for defiance. People who didn't rush to reassure him always did. That lack of submission unsettled him more than any imagined threat. The lobby carried on around them in fragments. A phone rang and stopped. A wheelchair passed, its wheels whispering against the floor. A door side open and closed. Life continued detached, the way it often did when discomfort belonged to someone else. Marcus felt the attention settle. Not openly hostile, worse, curious, observant, waiting. He recognized it instantly, the quiet relief of spectators who were glad the spotlight had missed them. He'd seen that look in grocery aisles, parking garages, office lobbies with too much glass. It always landed the same way, a tightening beneath the ribs that reminded him to stay composed. "Hospital policy," Derek said suddenly, his voice loud enough to reclaim the moment. A nurse a few feet away paused with a clipboard in her hands. She glanced up, took in the scene, then looked back down at the paper without comment. Another staff member slowed near the corridor, hesitated, and kept walking. No one contradicted him. No one asked what policy. Derek didn't look at Marcus when he said it. He looked past him, toward an imagined audience that he assumed agreed. Marcus let the silence stretch. He adjusted his coat sleeve again, a small, precise movement, then spoke evenly. "I've been here before. No one's ever asked to check my bag." Derek finally met his eyes. Annoyance flickered there, followed by certainty. "Policies change," he said, "and I decide when something looks off." The words settled between them, vague enough to be untouchable, absolute enough to end discussion. Marcus nodded once, acknowledging the statement without accepting its authority. Inside, the familiar conflict stirred. Not fear, not anger, but the exhausting knowledge of how narrow the space was to move without being misread. He thought of how many times he'd chosen compliance over confrontation. How often he'd lowered his voice, softened his posture, made himself smaller in hopes it would pass faster. How often it hadn't mattered. Derek took the pause as hesitation. It emboldened him. He stepped closer under the cover of procedure, invading space with the confidence of someone who expected no resistance. He could feel the room tilting toward him. This was where he was comfortable. What Derek didn't notice, what he never noticed, was the camera. High above them, its lens angled wide, it recorded everything. The couple waved through without pause. Marcus stopped mid-step, the raised hand that cut him off, the silence that followed hospital policy. It captured tone, timing, posture. It captured how easily power settled into one man's voice. Marcus felt something solidify inside him, resolve, perhaps, or simply the refusal to disappear inside someone else's assumption. He lifted his chin slightly, eyes steady. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. "I just want to visit someone." Derek's mouth tightened. To him, it sounded like resistance. To the camera, it sounded like dignity. The guard reached for the bag, not fast, not slow. The movement was casual, rehearsed, like muscle memory. Like Marcus was just another task between coffee breaks. Marcus shifted his hand back a few inches, keeping the bag close to his side. The paper handles whispered against each other. "I didn't say you could take it," he said. The guard's fingers froze in midair. For a brief second, something like surprise crossed his face, then irritation hardened it. "You don't get to decide that," he said. "This is a hospital. My job is to keep it safe." "By stopping visitors?" Marcus asked. His voice stayed level, but the edge was unmistakable now. "I told you what's in the bag." The guard exhaled sharply through his nose. "And I told you we've had theft issues. I need to see inside." A chair scraped softly as someone shifted their weight. The lobby's rhythm faltered, as if the building itself had slowed to listen. Marcus felt eyes settle on his back. He didn't turn. He kept his gaze forward steady. "Is this how you treat everyone?" he asked. The guard's mouth curled. "Everyone who gives me a reason." Marcus let the silence sit. He could feel his heartbeat, not racing, not erratic. Present, he thought of the person upstairs, waiting, watching the clock. He thought of how this delay would sound when he explained it later. That thought stung more than the accusation. "I haven't done anything wrong," he said. "If you think I have, call your supervisor." That did it. The guard's expression tightened, offense flashing across his face. "You don't get to make demands," he snapped. "Now hand over the bag." "I'm asking for procedure," Marcus replied. "That's not a demand." The guard stepped closer, too close. Marcus caught the sharp edge of cologne layered over sweat. Authority had a smell. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," the guard said quietly, lowering his voice. "People who cooperate don't have problems." Marcus didn't step back. "People who cooperate still get stopped," he said. "I just watched you wave two people through." For a split second, the guard's eyes flicked toward the entrance. Toward the memory of the couple who hadn't been questioned. "That's different," he said. "How?" Marcus asked. The guard didn't answer. Instead, he raised his voice, letting it carry. "Sir, I am ordering you to comply," he announced. Failure to do so can result in removal from the premises. A man near the vending machines shifted, then looked away. A nurse froze with a clipboard in her hands, eyes darting between them before dropping to the floor. No one spoke. Marcus swallowed. His mouth was dry. He tightened his grip on the bag handles, knuckles whitening, not to hide them but to anchor himself. "I'm not refusing," he said. "I'm asking why." The guard let out a short, humorless laugh. "Because I said so." The words landed like a door slamming shut. Marcus felt the weight of inevitability settle in his chest. He knew this turn, knew how quickly calm became attitude, how questions became resistance. "Open the bag," the guard repeated. Marcus hesitated just long enough to breathe. The guard seized it. "See," he said loudly, angling his body so others could hear. "This is exactly what I'm talking about." "That's not fair," Marcus said. His voice was firmer now. "You didn't even ask the people before me." The guard's jaw clenched. "You want to keep pushing this." "I want to understand why I'm being singled out," Marcus replied. The word hung there, singled out. The guard's eyes hardened. "I'm done debating," he said. "Put the bag on the floor." The command was deliberate, not practical, performative. Marcus looked at him. "Why? I didn't say hold it out," the guard snapped. "I said put it on the floor." Now, there it was. The intention bare. The demand wasn't about inspection. It was about posture, about lowering himself, about making a point in front of everyone watching. A woman near the check-in desk finally spoke, tentative. "Is there a problem here?" "Security issue," the guard replied without looking at her. "Please stay out of it." She hesitated, then nodded and stepped back. Her silence pressed down heavier than any shout. Marcus exhaled slowly. He lowered the bag between them, but he didn't kneel. He didn't drop it. He held it out, arm steady. "You can look," he said, "right here." The guard stared at the bag, then at Marcus. This wasn't the submission he wanted. "I said on the floor," he repeated. Marcus shook his head once. "I'm not a threat." That was enough. "Do not tell me how to do my job," the guard barked, his voice ricocheting off the walls. "You think you're special." A few people flinched. Someone lifted a phone, then lowered it again, eyes darting. "I think I deserve the same treatment as everyone else," Marcus said. The guard reached for his radio. "I need backup at the front lobby," he said. "Non-compliant individual." Non-compliant. The word changed the room. Marcus felt heat rise up his neck. He kept his hands visible. He kept his voice even. "I'm standing here," he said. "I haven't moved. I haven't raised my voice." "That's not the point," the guard said. "The point is you're not cooperating." The radio crackled. "Copy." People leaned away now, creating space around Marcus. The air opened up, isolating him. He felt both exposed and erased. "Please," he said quietly. "I'm just here to visit someone." The guard glanced at the bag. "Open it." Marcus closed his eyes for half a second, then he parted the handles. Inside sat grape juice, a paperback novel, a folded card. The guard leaned in, peering, his brow furrowed. "That's it?" he asked. "That's it," Marcus said. Doubt flickered, brief, inconvenient. It vanished just as quickly. "You could have ditched whatever you took already," the guard said. "This doesn't prove anything." Marcus stared at him. "You're serious?" "I am," the guard replied. "Now step aside while we figure this out." "Figure what out?" Marcus asked. "You just looked." "I decide when we're done." Footsteps approached. A younger guard arrived, posture stiff, eyes moving quickly. "What's going on?" he asked. "This man's refusing to comply," the senior guard said. "Possible theft." The younger guard looked at the open bag, then at Marcus. "That doesn't look like protocol," the senior guard cut in sharply. "I've got it." The younger guard hesitated. His jaw tightened. He nodded once reluctantly and stepped back, eyes down, shoulders slumped. Seniority won. Silence followed. Marcus felt exhaustion settle deep in his bones, not physical. Moral, so what happens now? He asked. Now you wait, the guard said. For what? For us to be sure. How long? The guard shrugged. As long as it takes. Marcus looked around. The nurse avoided his gaze. The woman from earlier stood farther away now. The man by the vending machine stared at the floor. Above them, the camera's red light glowed steadily. It captured the shrug, the open bag, Marcus standing still, hands visible, dignity intact. It captured the moment suspicion hardened into certainty, not because of evidence, but because authority demanded a win. Marcus straightened his shoulders. I'm not going anywhere, he said. But I'm not admitting to something I didn't do. The guard smirked. We'll see how long that attitude lasts. And the lobby held its breath, unaware that every second was being recorded, patiently, permanently, by something that did not forget. Time stretched the moment, the guard said. Now you wait. Marcus stood where he was, the bag back in his hand, its weight suddenly insignificant compared to the heaviness settling in his chest. The lobby resumed movement in pieces, someone coughing, a cart rattling past, but the space around him stayed hollow, like an invisible boundary had been drawn and everyone understood not to cross it. The guard positioned himself half a step to Marcus's side, close enough to remind him he was being watched, not restrained, not escorted, just contained. It was a subtle cruelty, the kind that didn't bruise skin but left marks all the same. Marcus shifted his feet, careful not to look restless. He rolled his shoulders once, easing the tension, then stood still again. His gaze drifted to the digital clock above the elevators. Minutes were passing, real minutes. He imagined the person upstairs checking their own clock, wondering why he hadn't arrived yet. The younger guard lingered a few yards away. Marcus caught him glancing over once quickly, before looking down at his shoes. When their eyes met briefly, the younger guard looked away. That look, hesitation wrapped in relief, cut deeper than the accusation. It said, I see it, I just won't stop it. The senior guard spoke into his radio again, quieter this time. Yeah, still holding him. No, nothing yet. He turned slightly, blocking Marcus from the desk, as if Marcus might suddenly bolt. A nurse passed close by, her scrubs brushing the edge of Marcus's vision. She slowed almost imperceptibly, then kept walking. He wondered what she'd say later. Security handled it. There was a situation. Passive sentences for active harm. The murmur in the lobby faded into something like discomfort. People avoided looking directly at Marcus now. A man shifted his chair farther away. A woman pulled her purse closer. No one said a word. The accusation had done its job. It didn't matter that the bag was open. It didn't matter that nothing had been found. The label stuck. Marcus felt the familiar pressure building, not panic, but something heavier, a quiet grief, the kind that came from knowing this moment would follow him long after he left the building. That it would replay later, uninvited, that he'd measure future rooms by how quickly they felt like this one. He adjusted his coat sleeve again and checked his watch. 10 minutes. He exhaled slowly through his nose. I've been patient, he said, keeping his voice calm. Can I go now? The guard didn't look at him. I said wait. For what? Marcus asked. You checked the bag. You didn't find anything. That's not the point, the guard replied. Marcus nodded once. Then what is? The guard finally turned, eyes flat. You don't get to question this. The words landed with finality, not angry, certain. Marcus felt his jaw tighten. He let it go. Am I being detained? He asked. The guard's eyes flicked around again, gauging the room. You're being held for investigation. By who? By me. Marcus held his gaze. On what grounds? The guard stepped closer, lowering his voice. You want to keep making this worse. Marcus said nothing. He knew better now. Every question was being logged, not by policy, but by ego. Behind the guard, the front desk clerk picked up the phone, hesitated, then put it back down. She stared at her screen like it might offer instructions on how to disappear. The younger guard shifted his weight again. Maybe we should call. I've got it. The senior guard snapped, not turning around. That was that. Minutes passed. Then more. Marcus felt the strain creep into his lower back, into his calves. He stayed upright anyway. He refused to lean, refused to fold. His phone buzzed in his pocket. Once, then again, he didn't reach for it. He didn't want to give the guard another reason to say something, looked off. The guard noticed anyway. Who's that? He asked. My phone, Marcus said. Keep it there. Marcus nodded. The buzzing stopped. Somewhere nearby, laughter broke out, brief, awkward. It felt wrong in this space, like noise in a church. Marcus closed his eyes for a second. When he opened them, the camera in the corner caught the movement, the slow blink, the stillness that followed. The guard paced once, then stopped in front of Marcus again. You know, he said casually, if you'd just done what I asked, this would already be over. Marcus looked at him. I did what you asked. The guard shrugged. Not the way I asked. There it was, the truth unfiltered. Marcus felt a flicker of anger, then sharp, fleeting. He swallowed it down. Anger would only give the moment what it wanted. I just want to go upstairs, he said. That's it, the guard tilted his head. Maybe next time you'll think about how you come in here. Marcus stared at him. Think about what? The guard didn't answer. He didn't need to. The younger guard finally moved away, retreating down the hall as if distance might absolve him. Marcus watched him go, then looked back at the senior guard. The clock ticked on. When a supervisor finally appeared, late, distracted, already irritated, the guard spoke first. He summarized quickly, efficiently: suspicious behavior, refusal to comply, possible theft. The words flowed easily. The supervisor glanced at the bag. You check it. Yes, and nothing obvious. The supervisor sighed. Then what are we doing here? The guard hesitated. Just a beat, then. Just being thorough. The supervisor looked at Marcus for the first time. Really looked. Took in the posture, the steady eyes, the open bag. Sir, he said, you can go. Marcus didn't move right away. He waited for the guard to say something else. To object, he didn't. Marcus nodded once. Thank you. He turned and walked toward the elevators, every step measured. He didn't rush. He didn't look back. Behind him, the lobby exhaled. Conversations resumed. Chairs scraped back into place. The moment dissolved, absorbed into the building like it had never happened. But the camera stayed fixed. Its red light blinked steadily, holding onto everything: the delay, the silence, the shrug, the smirk. Marcus stepped into the elevator and finally let his shoulders drop. Above, unseen, the footage waited. The room doesn't change, but everything in it does. It happens quietly at first, not with a shout, not with a badge slammed on a table, just a pause. The senior administrator enters with a tablet held tight to her chest, her steps measured, eyes already scanning the scene the way someone does when they know they're about to step into something radioactive. She doesn't look at Derek right away. She looks at Marcus. Marcus is seated now, hands visible, back straight. His jacket folded on his lap like a habit he learned long before today, long before this building. The kind of posture you develop when you're used to being judged the moment you enter a room. There's a faint red mark on his wrist where the guard's grip lingered a second too long. The administrator swallows. Sir, she says not loudly but carefully, can I confirm your name? Derek shifts his weight. Marcus answers without hesitation, calm, even, as if the last 40 minutes were something he's already processed and filed away. She types. The room fills with the soft, humiliating sound of keystrokes. The junior guard watches her face. It changes, not dramatically. No gasp, no widened eyes, just stillness. The kind of stillness professionals get when the ground drops out from under them, but they refuse to show it. She looks up, this time directly at Marcus. I'm very sorry, she says. And the word sorry lands heavier than anything Derek has said all day. There's been a misunderstanding. Derek laughs once, sharp, defensive. A misunderstanding, he says. He refused a security request. That's not, the administrator raises a hand, not at Marcus. At Derek, it's small, polite, final. Officer, she stops herself, corrects. Mr. Derek, this individual is listed as a federal legal advisor assigned to the Justice Oversight Committee. The words don't register immediately. They bounce, the junior guard's breath catches. Derek blinks once, twice. That's not possible, he says, too fast. He didn't say. Marcus finally looks at him, not with anger, with something worse, recognition. I didn't think it mattered, Marcus says. You'd already decided. Silence spreads through the room like a spill no one knows how to clean. The administrator continues, voice now clipped, professional, unmistakably alert. Mr. Marcus Hale is cleared at a level 4 federal capacity. His presence here today was documented and pre-approved. There was no violation, no threat assessment. No refusal logged on his end. She turns the tablet so Derek can see. Names, credentials, timestamps, evidence. Derek doesn't step closer. He steps back. That can't be right, he mutters. I followed protocol. Marcus exhales slowly. Which one? He asks. The written one, or the one where you decide who looks off? The junior guard looks down. His jaw tightens. The administrator's tone cools another degree. Sir, she says to Derek, why was he detained? Derek opens his mouth. Nothing comes out, because now suddenly the words he used earlier echo too loudly. Non-compliant, looks off. I decide. They sound different when there's a record. When there's a witness, when the man you tried to shrink turns out to outrank the room. Marcus stands not abruptly, not defiantly, just normally. He straightens his sleeve, checks his watch. That small detail lands like a verdict. My mother is waiting, he says. She's in recovery. The The administrator nods immediately. Of course, we'll escort you. She turns again, this time to Derek. Mr. Derek, she says, and now there's no confusion in her voice. You're relieved from duty pending review. The word review hits harder than suspended ever could. Derek's face drains. You can't, he starts. I was doing my job. Marcus pauses at the door. He doesn't turn around. I believe you, he says quietly. That's the problem. No one follows Derek when he steps back. No one meets his eyes. The junior guard hesitates just for a second, then steps toward Marcus instead. I'm sorry, he says. It's barely audible, but it's real. Marcus nods once. Not forgiveness, acknowledgement. As they walk down the corridor, the hospital seems different, brighter, louder, as if it's embarrassed by what just happened and doesn't know how to apologize. Marcus's phone vibrates. A text from his sister. She's asking for you. He types back, I'm coming. Behind them, the administrator is already on the phone. Low voice, urgent phrases. Internal compliance, incident report, full footage review, systems waking up late but awake. Marcus stops outside the recovery room, places his hand on the glass. Inside, his mother sleeps, peaceful, unaware of how close the world came to taking something else from her today. The junior guard stands a respectful distance away. You didn't have to be calm back there, he says. Most people wouldn't have been. Marcus watches his mother breathe. I wasn't calm, he replies. I was practiced. The guard nods like someone who finally understands the weight of that sentence. From the end of the hall, Derek watches. No one is shouting at him. No cuffs. No spectacle. Just the slow, unbearable realization that the authority he leaned on was never real, only borrowed, and now reclaimed. The revelation doesn't explode. It settles. And in that settling, everything is exposed. The hospital doesn't issue a statement that night. No press release. No apology framed in legal language. Just movement. Doors opening that were previously closed, phones ringing in offices that preferred silence, a chain reaction that starts small but doesn't stop. Marcus sits beside his mother's bed as the monitors hum steadily. Her eyes flutter open, unfocused at first, then searching. There you are, she whispers. I thought you got lost. He smiles, the kind that doesn't need effort. Nothing could have kept me away, he says. She notices his wrist. The faint red mark. What happened? Marcus considers lying. Not to protect himself, but to protect her. Instead, he adjusts the blanket and says, I was delayed. She studies him. Mothers always know when a word is doing too much work. You don't look delayed, she says. You look tired. He nods. Outside the room, the administrator waits. She doesn't interrupt. She watches through the glass with the expression of someone replaying a moment they wish they could rewind. When Marcus finally steps out, she straightens. I've authorized a full review, she says. Footage, procedures, personnel, independent. Marcus listens, doesn't react. And she adds, we're filing an internal recommendation for disciplinary action. Good, Marcus says, not sharply, not kindly, just accurately. She hesitates. If you'd like to make a formal complaint, I will, he replies. But not tonight, that surprises her. Tonight, Marcus continues, I go home with my family. She nods, understanding that this is not mercy, it's priority. The junior guard approaches, hands clasped, posture unsure. I spoke to internal affairs, he says. They asked for my statement. And, Marcus asks, I told them everything, the guard replies. Even the parts that made me look bad. Marcus studies him. That's how systems change, he says. Not when bad people are loud, but when quiet people stop being quiet. The guard exhales, like he's been holding that breath for years. Down the corridor, Derek cleans out his locker. No one escorts him. No one yells. No one needs to. The badge feels heavier in his hand than it ever did on his chest. He pauses when he hears laughter from a patient room, a family reunited, a moment he'll never be part of. For the first time, the thought hits him, not that he was wrong, but that he was small. And that smallness, left unchecked, had nearly hurt someone who never deserved it. Marcus leaves the hospital just before dawn. The sky is pale, undecided, like it's still figuring out what kind of day it wants to be. His sister waits by the car. She hugs him longer than usual. I heard, she says softly. He doesn't ask how. Did you say who you were? She asks. Marcus shakes his head. They didn't ask. They drive in silence for a while. Then his phone buzzes. A message from a number he recognizes. We've opened a case file. Thank you for your cooperation. He locks the screen. This wasn't about cooperation. It was about endurance. As the city wakes up around them, Marcus watches the streets pass by. Ordinary people heading to ordinary lives, most of them never knowing how close injustice comes, how casually it reaches out. He thinks of the times he stayed silent, the times he complied to survive, The time's dignity meant swallowing anger, and he realizes something has shifted, not the world, him. This time he won't just endure. This time he'll make sure it's remembered. The hospital lobby looks different the next day, not because the walls changed or the fluorescent lights flickered differently, but because the memory of what happened lingers like a shadow that refuses to bend. Staff pass the camera's red glow with cautious glances. Even the youngest clerk sensed the weight of the previous day, a lesson recorded in pixels and still frames. Derek doesn't return to his post. The badge that once felt heavy with authority now sits on a desk, inert, meaningless. Colleagues whisper in corners. The word noncompliant haunts hallways, stripped of power, now only a reminder of the arrogance it once cloaked. Marcus visits his mother, who recovers slowly, unaware of the turmoil her presence had sparked in a lobby 2 floors below. He holds her hand, steady, calm, as if every step, every breath had been rehearsed for this quiet moment of reclamation. Outside, the city moves as usual, people rushing, cars honking, lives unfolding. But Marcus carries an invisible ledger, a record that no authority can erase. The security footage sits in an office somewhere, patient and unyielding. It waits, it will speak when words fail, when memory falters. It is impartial, precise, and merciless in its truth. And Marcus walks on, knowing that dignity is not given. It is held, guarded, practiced. In the quiet, the moral remains. Authority unchecked can harm, but truth witnessed never fades.